Hi everyone, Dr. Saiti here, Team MDS Conquer. So the first and the foremost chapter that is being given in your textbook of oral radiology, the White and Farrow, is the radiation physics. So it's actually very important in any exam point of view. Okay, so this particular discussion will give you a brief idea of all the important aspects and all the essential points related to this chapter, that is the radiation physics. Okay, so let's start. So first, in order to go into the chapter, first we need to have a good idea of the X-ray tube. So we need to have a good grip of all the important components of the X-ray tube and how the X-ray tube works and how the X-rays are being emitted so as to understand this chapter. Okay, so it's a very important area. So let's start the discussion with the X-ray tube. So as you can see here, there is an evacuated glass envelope. Okay, so X-ray tube has an evacuated glass envelope which is having vacuum in it. So why is being vacuum present there? Why is vacuum being present there? There are two main reasons for that. So first reason is it prevents a collision of the electrons with that of the gas molecules. Okay, so if there is a collision of the electrons with that of the gas molecules, then subsequent speed of the electrons will reduce. Okay, so the vacuum will prevent the collision of electrons with that of the gas molecules in order to maintain the speed of the electrons. That is the number one reason. Number two reason is it prevents the oxidation or burnout of the tungsten filament. Okay, so two reasons. Number one, prevents the collision of electrons, and number two, it prevents the oxidation or burnout of the tungsten filament. Okay, so this is regarding the glass envelope which is being evacuated with vacuum. Now the most important components are the cathode and anode. Right, so the cathode is a negatively charged whereas anode is positively charged. So as you can see in the picture, the cathode has a coil like structure which is white in color in this particular diagram. So that one is made up of tungsten. It is called as filament and it is made up of tungsten. Okay, so the cathode consists of a molybdenum focusing cup and a tungsten filament. Okay, so that tungsten filament is about 2 mm in diameter and about 1 centimeter in its length, less than or equal to 1 centimeter in its length. Okay, and also 1% of thorium is being added in order to increase the release of electrons when the tungsten filament is heated. Okay, so filament is made up of tungsten and 1% of thorium is being added in order to increase the release of electrons whenever it is heated. Okay, so this is regarding the filament. And now you can see a concave shaped cup which is called as a focusing cup, which is made up of molybdenum. Okay, so it is made up of molybdenum and the cup is parabolic or a concave shaped. Why? Because it can electrostatically focus the electrons towards the focal spot which is present in the anode. Okay, so this is the important aspects related to cathode. So number one is it is made up of tungsten filament. Okay, and number two is it consists of a focusing cup which is made up of molybdenum and the cup is parabolic or concave shaped in order to electrostatically focus the electrons towards the focal spot which is present in the anode. Right, so we are done with the cathode. Now coming to the other side, which is the anode, which consists of focal spot. As you can see, there is a white color thing which is called as a focal spot and there is a golden color copper stem. So the focal spot, as you can see there, it is not straight, it is slightly angulated. Right, so that angulation is about 20 degrees. So why is it angulated? There's again a reason for that. So that angulation of 20 degrees is called as line focus principle. Okay, so why is it angulated is in order to decrease the size of the focal spot, and that final size is called as effective focal spot size. So in order to decrease the size of the focal spot from actual size to the effective focal spot size, it is slightly angulated and the effective focal spot size is 1 into 1 mm. Okay, so why is it done is in order to improve the heat dissipation and also in order to increase the sharpness of the image. Okay, so these are the other reasons for that. So you have to mainly remember that the angulation is about 20 degrees, which is line focus principle, in order to decrease the effective focal spot size. So in order to decrease the size of the focal spot from actual to the effective focal spot size, which is again finally 1 into 1 mm, it is slightly angulated. Okay, this is mainly related to deheat dissipation. Okay, that is an important concept again. So here the focal spot is again made up of tungsten, and why the tungsten is being used, with that we'll be discussing further. Okay, so we are done with cathode and anode. So anode consists of a focal spot which is again made up of tungsten, and it is slightly angulated of about 20 degrees in order to get effective focal spot size of 1 into 1 mm. Okay, and that angulation is 20 degrees, which is called as line focus principle. We are done with cathode and anode. This is the important aspects related to both these concepts. So next you can see here there is a step down transformer which is present near the cathode. So why there is a step down transformer? What is the reason for that, and what is the concept behind that? Okay, so when we on the X-ray tube, there is a constant power supply that is being given to the cathode, right? So we know power is equal to voltage into current. Okay, P is equal to V into I. P is equal to VI, that we know, right? So whenever there is a constant power supply, the voltage it is inversely proportional to current, right? So now in order to heat the filament, as you can see, the filament is being heated. It has turned red into color. It has turned red in color, right? So in order to get the electron cloud, we need to heat the filament, right? So in order to get that, we need to give good current supply to the filament, right? So you have to increase the current supply to the filament. So as I said, voltage is inversely proportional to current whenever there is a constant power supply, right? So you have to increase the current to the filament. For that you have to decrease the voltage. Okay, because both are inversely proportional, right? So you have to decrease the voltage in order to increase the current supply to the filament. So that reduction in the voltage is being done by the step down transformer. Okay, so step down transformer will reduce the voltage so that the current supply will be given to the filament, and the filament will be heated and it will produce the exact amount of or high amount of electron cloud that is actually needed, right? So this is regarding the step down transformer. Okay, now we have discussed the step down transformer, that it will decrease the voltage in order to increase the current supply to the filament and to heat the filament, right? We are done with it. Now let's discuss with the step up transformer. So there is a step up transformer. Why? We have discussed with the step down. Then why again there is one more transformer which is called as a step up transformer? So simple reason behind that is, for the electrons to focus towards the focal spot on the anode, there should be a good potential difference between the cathode and anode. Okay, voltage or potential difference should be maintained between the cathode and anode, right? So for that, step up transformer will increase the voltage again. Step down transformer has decreased the voltage. Now the step up transformer will increase the voltage so that a good amount of potential difference or good amount of voltage difference is being maintained between the cathode and anode, so that the electrons will nicely focus towards the focal spot of the anode. Okay, so because the step down transformer will now increase the voltage, a good potential difference is being maintained between the cathode and anode. So as a consequence of this, you can see the electrons can nicely focus towards the focal spot and the radiation is being emitted, right? So this is a simple concept related to the X-ray tube. So you need to be well aware of it, right? So the emitted X-rays or the emitted radiation will be out from the window, right? So this is an important area. Besides these, there are two more other important concepts related to the X-ray tube. Number one is the filtration. Okay, so Actually, a lot of different energy related photons are being produced. There are high energy photons, there are low energy photons. But actually, the low energy photons are not useful to produce the image. Okay, so low energy photons have to be filtered. Okay, that is being done by filtration. And this filtration totally it consists of two again different concepts. So first one is inherent filtration. So inherent filtration is within the X-ray tube. Maybe it is the inherent filtration is because of the insulating oil or because of the glass evacuated tube and all that. So inherent filtration is mainly by the insulating oil within the envelope. Okay, so inherently it filters the low energy photons. Number two is added filtration. So we add aluminium like filters in order to get more effect of filtration. Okay, so inherent filtration plus added filtration is equal to total filtration. Okay, so aluminium is a substance that is being used for added filtration. Okay, that you need to have to remember. That is number one concept. So filtration mainly filters the low energy photons which are actually not needed to produce the image, right? So that is mainly by the aluminium which is being given as a added filtration, and inherently the insulating oil acts as a filter, or it gives its filtration effect. Okay, so this is related to filtration. Next, coming to collimation. So collimation is mainly the number of scattered photons which are being produced. So in order to absorb the scattered photons, collimators are being used. Okay, that collimators is made up of lead. So filtration is made up of aluminium. Okay, the added filtration is by aluminium, whereas the collimators or the collimation is mainly related to material or the substance which is made up of lead. Okay, so these two are the other important concepts related to the X-ray tube, right? So let's go further. Now, as I've discussed, so we use a tungsten as a focal spot or as a target material. Why? There are four reasons for that. Number one is it is having a high atomic number. So if there is a high atomic number, it can produce a good or efficient X-rays, right? Number two, it has a very good high melting point. So whenever there is a high melting point, it can withstand the high temperatures or high heat that is being produced during the X-ray production. Okay, so in order to withstand or sustain the high amount of heat which is present, it needs to have a high melting point. So tungsten does have high melting point. Next, high thermal conductivity. It should also have good thermal conductivity in order to dissipate the heat away from the target, and it should have low vapor pressure. Okay, so these are the very important aspects related to the why tungsten is being used in the X-ray tube. Okay, and also you need to remember the values that I have posted here. It is quite memory based, but it's better if you remember. Okay, now first let's discuss. Now we have seen the X-rays are being produced at the focal spot, right? How are they produced? There are two main concepts of the production of X-rays near the focal spot. Number one is called as a Bremsstrahlung radiation, or also called as a braking effect. Number two is the characteristic radiation. Okay, so first we'll be discussing this Bremsstrahlung radiation. Okay, so actually the high energy electrons which are being emitted occasionally or very rarely hit the nucleus of the tungsten target or tungsten focal spot. Very rarely it hit the nucleus. Mostly it misses the nucleus. So it nearly missed the nucleus and it goes like this. So rarely it hits. Okay, it nearly misses the nucleus and it goes like this. So during this process, it loses its velocity. Okay, so as you can see, it loses its velocity. So this deceleration will release a kinetic energy that is being emitted as X-rays or photons or the X-ray photons. Okay, so the high energy electrons will nearly miss the nucleus. Okay, and then during this interaction there will be loss of velocity, and that deceleration will release the kinetic energy which subsequently will release the X-ray photons. Okay, so this is called as a Bremsstrahlung or the breaking effect. Okay, so it is very important because most of the X-ray photons are being produced by this effect, which is called as a Bremsstrahlung radiation or the breaking effect. Okay, so the more the less the distance between the nucleus and the electrons, the more the electrostatic forces between them and higher the Bremsstrahlung photons that are being produced. So high energy photons are being produced when there is more electrostatic forces of attraction between the electron and the nucleus. That's a related concept. So main thing that you need to remember is the electron will nearly miss the nucleus, it loses its velocity, and that deceleration will produce a kinetic energy which ultimately releases the X-ray photons. Right, this is related to the Bremsstrahlung radiation or the breaking effect. Next, one more concept related to the production of X-rays is a characteristic radiation. Okay, so if the electron, from the electron beam or the high energy electrons, whenever it hits the innermost electron of the tungsten target, if it hits the innermost electron, then what happens? The outer electron will come and fall into the innermost electron, right? So if it hits the innermost electron, the outer electron will have a tendency to fall into the innermost orbital, right? So this outer electron will come and fall now, as you can see here. So there is this electron which hits the innermost electron of the tungsten target. So there is a void here that will be filled by the outermost electron. So whenever the outermost electron jumps into the innermost orbital, then it produces an X-ray. That is nothing but the characteristic radiation. So why is it called as a characteristic radiation? Why? Because that is characteristic for that particular atom. So here the tungsten is being used, right? So the orbitals of the tungsten is the same for any, it remains the same, right? So it is characteristic. So the characteristic radiation is why the name is being given, because the X-rays which is produced by the tungsten atom or the target which is made up of tungsten, it is characteristic for that particular atom, right? Because it happens within the atom itself, right? So that's the reason the name is given as a characteristic radiation. So these are the two concepts related to the production of X-rays. Number one is the Bremsstrahlung radiation and number two is the characteristic radiation. So most of the photons are produced by the Bremsstrahlung radiation, right? Next, so if you see the difference here, so this is Bremsstrahlung, so it nearly misses the near to the nucleus and it produces a photon or the X-ray photon as we have discussed. And in the characteristic X-ray, the innermost electron will be hit and the outermost electron will fall into the innermost orbital and that will produce an X-ray. So this is a major difference between these two type of X-rays that are being produced at the tungsten target, right? Now the X-rays are being emitted. Either it could be, mostly it could be because of Bremsstrahlung radiation or it could be rarely via characteristic radiation. So now the X-rays are being emitted. Now it interacts with the matter, right? So matter, it could be the human being or it could be anything, right? So the interaction with matter is again of these four scatterings occurs. So as you can see, no interaction is about 9%, coherent scattering is 7%, photoelectric absorption is 27% and Compton scattering is 57%. So this is slight confusing. It is little difficult to remember, but it is very important again. Okay, so these are the different types of interactions with the matter. Okay, so let's discuss. So first is the coherent scattering. So coherent scattering is also called as a Rayleigh or a elastic scattering. Okay, also called as a classic scattering or Rayleigh or elastic scattering. So as you can see here, the diagram, So here what exactly happens is, so the incident photon, that is the X-ray photon, will go and hit the outermost electron. Okay, it will go and hit the outermost electron, and it momentarily excites the electron here. So here, as you can see, it momentarily excites the electron, right? So first, the incident photon will hit the outermost electron of the matter, and it momentarily excites it. So the electron will be momentarily excited. Now what happens? The incident photon will ceases to act. It will come back to its ground state, right? It will come back to its ground state. Next, what happens is, this interaction will emit a scattered photon with same energy but at a little different angle. Okay, so this is regarding the coherent scattering. So coherent scattering, which is also called as a classic scattering. Okay, there are other names for that, you just have a look, also called as elastic Rayleigh or classic scattering. Okay, so this is simple concept. The incident photon will momentarily excite the outermost electron of the matter and it will cease to act. Later, this interaction will produce a scattered photon with same energy but at a different angle, okay, with that of the path of the incident photon. This is regarding the coherent scattering, right? Now, let's discuss with the photoelectric absorption. So, photoelectric absorption is same like that of the characteristic radiation. It is just the same. So, how the characteristic radiation occurs at the tungsten's target, it is just the same, but it occurs with the matter. So, two different names. Characteristic radiation occurs with the tungsten target in the X-ray tube, whereas photoelectric absorption is with the X-ray photons interaction with that of the matter. So, but the concept is again the same. So, as you can see here the incident photon will hit the innermost electron. So, we know when the innermost electron is being hitted and it is being like removed from its place, there is a vacancy here, right? There is a void that is being formed. This vacancy will be filled by the outermost electron. So, the outermost electron will come and fill the vacancy there, and that produces the characteristic radiation. So, here it is again the characteristic radiation, but when it is called with the interaction with the matter, it is called as a photoelectric absorption. So, same here, innermost electron is being hit by the incident photon, okay, whereas in coherent scattering, the outermost electron is being hit, right. So, this is the two differences between the coherent and the photoelectric absorption. Now, the very important is a Compton scattering. So, Compton scattering is the main thing of why the image fogging occurs. So, Compton scattering with the matter, so the interaction of the X-rays with the matter produces this Compton scattering, which is about 57%. So, that causes a lot of scattered photons, which ultimately causes the image fogging. Okay, so that is a very important concept. So, here what exactly happens is, so the incident photon, as you can see, it recoils the electrons from its impact. So, from the point of impact, the electrons will be recoiled and it again gets scattered in a different angle. So, this scattered photon will not remain quiet, it will go and hit the neighboring atom or the neighboring electron. Okay, so the process goes on. So, as a consequence of that, a number of scattered photons will be produced, which ultimately affect the image by causing fogging. Okay, so it causes the image fogging, because of which the image is not appreciated that it is not that appreciated. Okay, so that is related to Compton scattering. So, we have discussed the three main important scatterings. Okay, so first one is the coherent, which is 7%, next is the photoelectric absorption, which is 27%, and last one is the Compton scattering, which is 57%. So, these three are the important scatterings or the important interactions of the X-ray photons with that of matter. Okay. So, first we have discussed the coherent, wherein the incident photon will hit the outermost electron and it ceases to act. Okay, it will come back to its ground state. Later, because of this interaction, a scattered photon will be produced, which is again of same energy but at a different angle with that of the path of the incident photon, right. So next one is the photoelectric absorption, wherein the innermost electron is being affected or it is being hit and a vacancy is created, and the outermost electron has a tendency to fall into the vacancy, and that fall will cause or will produce the effect or a scattering, or which is called as a photoelectric absorption. Okay, so it is similar to that of the characteristic radiation which occurs at the tungsten target, right? Now the last and the most important is the Compton scattering. As a consequence of that, a lot of scattered photons are being produced which causes the image fogging. Okay, so here the incident photon will recoil the electron from the point of impact. Okay, so this diagrammatic representation is very important so as to remember these scatterings. If you try to by heart the points which are there in the textbook, it is very hard or very difficult for you to remember for a long time. It's better to remember the diagram so that you can represent well. Okay, so diagrammatic representation is very important. So have a good idea of all the diagrams related to different type of scatterings and different type of product matter related concept related to this. So as you can see within the X-ray tube, the Bremsstrahlung radiation and the characteristic radiation, even there the diagrams are important, and again the interaction with the matter, these three type of scatterings, the diagrams are important because the diagrams will give you a good concept and you can remember for a longer time. Okay, so this is regarding the radiation physics and the important aspects related to radiation physics. So very important area is the X-ray tube, followed by the production of X-rays, and again followed by the interactions with the matter. Okay, so these are the important areas which I feel you need to have a good grip and good knowledge regarding all the concepts. Okay, so make a good note of all the things that we have discussed so far. Clear? Thank you.